You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we're gathering no moss in Fab Facts.
We're obeying the voices in our head in the randomizer.
and we're joined by David Mather from Corgi with some special news.
Cool, that's all coming up in pod 240.
What could that possibly be of the Jerry Anderson Podcast?
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Jerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Oh, here we are again.
Hello and greetings.
Here we are. It's like we had nothing better to do.
Well, you probably don't now, do you?
I don't. I'm a man of leisure for the moment.
Oh, well, good for you. You've earned your leisure time.
Thanks.
I've not, though.
No,
so
not yet.
the naughty glutton for punishment, am Jamie Anderson.
And I, reclining on my sofa, peeling a grape while drinking copious amounts of hot chocolate in my dressing gown, I'm Richard James.
What an image. And coming later on will be Chris Dale with his rather lovely red-buttoned randomizer where he'll choose a random episode of a random Jerry Anderson show. Yes. Well, that's all very fitting for the Jerry Anderson Podcast, and there'll be lots of stuff between now and then, including the following bullet-pointed elements.
Bullet-pointed? Right, okay. Well, Fab Facts. Jerry Anderson News. Part 1 of an interview with David Mather.
Correct.
Randomizer we've mentioned, and Podstrons, emailing, tweeting, Facebooking, YouTubing. I mean, I have to say, as bullet points, this doesn't sound very exciting, does it?
No, it doesn't, but we'll make them exciting as we get to them. So
okay, great, yes, of course. Yeah.
You have our guarantee, Podstrons, that the segments themselves will be at least slightly more exciting than the delivery of the bullet point versions.
I just did as I was asked.
I know, you're a very good boy. Thank
And
you.
on the subject of the randomizer, do you think there'll ever be a randomizer about the Jerry Anderson Podcast, where someone from the future dips into random episodes of the Jerry Anderson Podcast to comment, review, and give their thoughts on in another podcast?
I'm feeling a bit sick at the thought of it. So can we say no?
Okay, all right. Yeah, all right.
Goodness me. Okay,
Just
well,
wondering.
look, we've been efficient, sort of, until you went
Yes.
down this sort of
Sorry,
meta,
my fault.
strange
Yes.
path. So shall we get things back on track
Oh, only if that means some Fab Facts.
with a Fab Fact? It does
Oh,
indeed.
Joy.
Here we go.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Well, I suppose my Fab Facts intro should now be incredibly verbose and over the top to make
Yes,
up for
well,
the bullet pointing.
Absolutely, yes, go on then.
I'm not sure
No,
I've got the
don't.
energy.
You don't have the energy, no.
Each and every week we bring you a Fab Fact taken from the pages of my book of Fab Facts. Well, it's more of a tome, really.
It
but
is.
either way, it's full of fab and factual gubbins. And each time we do this section, I flick through the pages of my book using my often clammy thumb. And I'm stopped in my flicking by a declaration of fab from the one and only Richard James. Upon hearing the cry of fab, I cease my flicking in the hope that my clammy thumb can
Wow.
grasp onto the page where I've stopped. But sometimes, dear Podstron, you may hear a few naughty miscreant pages flip beyond their proposed stopping point.
Well,
apologies for that.
Well done. I mean, that's pretty verbose.
Thank you.
Well done, you.
Anyway, whatever page I happen upon after the cry of fab, I will read you the Fab Fact from that page, and we all hope and pray that it will indeed be fab. But it
We
will
certainly do.
be a fact.
It will, that's true, yes.
Now,
Yeah,
are
give
you
that.
ready with your fab, Richard James?
Born ready.
Excellent. I'm just dabbing my thumb to
Oh, good. Excellent.
remove any
Stickiness?
clamminess.
Yeah, nice.
There we go. Right.
Good.
Here we are, ready to flick. Off we go.
Fab!
Oh, that was quite good thumbing, I think.
What do you think?
Yeah, your fab was excellent, but
thank you.
my thumb was dry. So
Right.
we'll begin Fab Facts in 1978.
Oh, yeah, okay. Go on then.
Now, according to Sylvia Anderson's autobiography, 1978 was the year that she got to meet the Rolling Stones.
Well, I never.
Absolutely. Now, after her split from Dad, she was working on developing another unrelated film project and was hoping to pitch Mick Jagger and co. on the idea.
Oh, yeah.
However, the story goes that instead of listening to her pitch, the rock band sat around her in a semicircle, like little schoolchildren, and peppered her with questions about how Thunderbirds was made. Of
course
now,
they
who knew that the Rolling Stones were fans of Thunderbirds? One might not be surprised to discover that multi-instrumentalist Ronnie Wood, who also played with Faces and Jeff Beck, was a fan too. The reason being that Ronnie Wood's very first band was called...
The Move?
Try again.
Oh, I don't know. Beyond that.
The Thunderbirds.
Oh!
Now,
I
then
see.
later they became just The Birds, which led to confusion with The Birds, which obviously from my pronunciation you can tell I'm saying because his Birds was B-I-R-D-S and the confusion came with B-Y-R-D-S.
Also, more confusion coming from the fact that I thought Ronnie Wood, I heard Ronnie Wood and thought Roy Wood.
Brilliant. Okay, well that explains a lot.
Yes.
No, not that one.
I see.
Anyway, after that confusion with The Birds and the Birds, they just called the whole thing off.
Right, okay.
Now, before you get too excited and repeat this fab fact to all your friends, there is a small caveat.
Go on.
The Thunderbirds formed in 1964.
Right.
So that was before the first episode of Thunderbirds was actually broadcast.
Yeah.
So, depending on what time of year the group banded together, it's highly possible that the pilot episode, Trapped in the Sky, hadn't even been filmed yet.
Right.
But you never know.
Okay.
Perhaps Ronnie Wood had a friend in the studio who let him know about a series in pre-production and gave him the idea for the name. So, obviously, Ronnie Wood, if you're listening, or Roy Wood, please do write in to podcast@jerryanderson.com and help us clear that little query up. That would be very helpful. Thank you very much.
All a bit hypothetical, that one, wasn't it? Maybe it could be, perhaps it was, perhaps it wasn't. Yeah?
Hang on. I mean, I know I said it's fab facts.
Yeah.
The first bit is a fact. That's taken from a
Sure.
biography.
Yeah,
The second bit is a little
yeah.
bit of, maybe, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah,
So
all right,
but we can
okay.
go off on a creative
Well,
sort of slant, can't we?
don't we always? That's what we're here for, really.
Exactly. There you go. Anyway, Rolling Stones, fans of Thunderbirds, I think that's pretty cool. So Mick and Co, yes, and Ronnie Wood, there's a question mark there, but I'm sure Ronnie will be writing an email right now.
Oh, I bet. Yes, of course. I'll look out for that.
Yeah, do look out for it in the post bag. Anyway, that is the end, I think, of this week's...
Hypothetical fact!
It wasn't hypothetical. Goodness me.
No, that's nice. If, like Ronnie Wood, you'd like to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at podcast@jerryanderson.com, just like many of our podstrons have been doing over the Christmas and New Year period, which still only seems like it was yesterday. For example, Penquiller says, Dear Jamie and Richard, I hope you both had a good Christmas and New Year. I must have been a good girl, as Santa brought me the Fireball XL5 comic book. I'm so enjoying the beautiful illustrations and great stories that I'm rationing myself to one story per day to make it last. Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't. Wouldn't have the patience. The reproduction of the colours have come up brilliantly, and it's much easier to read in this format than the electronic versions I have on my laptop. As a child, I had the original comics, but alas, did not appreciate their artwork as a 7-year-old, so they were thrown away. I loved the additional story inserts from Lee Sullivan, and it occurs to me that the illustration at the top of page 113 showing Stingray, Fireball and Thunderbirds 1, 2 and 4 would make a great poster.
Oh, yes.
How about it? I do hope we can look forward to the same treatment of the Stingray stories when that series reaches its 60th anniversary in 2064.
Or 2024.
Yes, I think there's a slight mistake there. Yours, Penquiller. So, what
Thanks,
about
Ben.
it?
Well, yeah, Lee's stuff is absolutely brilliant, and that is a
Always.
lovely image of all the stuff together. So I'll have a chat with Lee. I'm seeing him very shortly, in fact, in the next couple of days.
Great.
And we're going out for a curry, so I will have a chat with him and see what we can do.
Lovely. Mark Perkins got in touch to say, following on from this week's podcast, I had a go on the chatbot that you were using, and now I can't leave it alone.
Ah, yes. Sorry about that.
I asked it to write a story about a Thunderbird's rescue in the style of the Bible. And here it is. Do you want to hear it?
I can think of nothing I'd like to hear more.
And it came to pass on a day of great tribulation that a cry for help went forth from the people, for a mighty earthquake had struck, and many were trapped in the rubble of their homes. And the Thunderbirds, being heroes of great renown, did hear the cry of the people, and were moved with compassion. And they took to the skies, flying forth in their mighty ships to the place of disaster. And as they flew, they saw the destruction that had been wrought upon the land, and their hearts were heavy. But they knew that they had been called to rescue the people, and they were determined to do so. And they landed their ships and went forth, using their strength and their technology to rescue those who were trapped. And they worked tirelessly, day and night, until all the people had been saved. And the people rejoiced, for they had been delivered from distress by the valiant efforts of the Thunderbirds. And they praised the Thunderbirds, saying, "Blessed be the heroes who came to our aid in our time of need." And the Thunderbirds returned to their base, their hearts filled with joy at having been able to help the people, and they knew that they had been called to serve, and that they would always be ready to do so for the sake of humanity.
Praise
Cheers,
be to
Mark
Jeff.
Perkins.
Amazing. Isn't that lovely?
Really lovely. Yeah, that's so nice, isn't it? It's clever, isn't it?
It is. Gosh. Well, I
enjoyed
wonder
that.
what other shows and styles that could be combined via artificial intelligence for a bit of fun.
Podstrons, have a play around and do send in your results, and I'll certainly read the best ones out on a future podcast.
Perhaps Space 1999 in the style of a picture book for 5-year-olds with very short sentences and 5 words a page.
That's right. That would be great. Look forward to that. David got in touch to say, "Hi all, hope you all had a lovely Christmas and a happy new year. Just listening to Pod 238 while weaning my way back into work, and I thought I'd send out my wish list as mentioned for the upcoming anniversaries, with a new line of action figures from Big Chief Studios, some vehicles in the vein of the Matchbox and Vivid Imagination lines from the 90s would be great in the new BCS line, and hoping for more waves of figures. Technical manuals of Stingray, Thunderbirds and Scarlet goes without saying, still keeping everything crossed for a Thunderbirds Blu-ray release from Network, and it would be rude not to include Blu-ray releases of Four Feather Falls and then a Secret Service, all of which I'm sure has already been discussed or is on the Anderson radar. Many thanks for taking the time to read, and here's to 2023 from David."
Thanks, David. Well, some of your calls may be answered in the upcoming interview this episode, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. We'll certainly be gunning to do more stuff with Network, because as we know, despite the sad loss of dear Tim Beddoes last year, things continue apace there. We're already doing some bits and pieces with them on the Anderson front, so let's hope and see what we can do. But there's certainly some exciting stuff coming between now and 2025.
Nice. Good. And finally, Steve got in touch to say, "Hi, Rich and Jamie, it's Steve from the Podder's Arms. I'm wondering if you haven't recorded the pod yet, could you do a shout-out to fellow podder Lynn McKinnon on the 16th of January, when she'll be changing her surname to Beresford, as the two of us are getting married."
Ah,
Isn't that lovely?
yes.
So
Congrats.
16th of January, is that yet to come? I haven't looked at the calendar yet. Is that yet to come or been and gone?
So that is the day of release.
Perfectly timed. There you go, Steve. Congratulations to you both, and I hope all goes well.
Many congrats, yes.
Brilliant. Do send in your emails to podcast@jerryanderson.com, whether you're about to get married, whether you would like to marry someone, whether you are fiancéed to somebody, whether you have been married before, and I'll read out your email next time.
Amazing.
There you go.
I look
think
forward
I've
to
covered all bases.
all those things that we might
Yeah.
hear. Yeah, fantastic. Richard, James, would you mind if I interjected with some Jerry Anderson news? Because I've got some to do.
Goodness, I thought you'd never ask.
Okay, well then, here it comes. It's the Jerry Anderson newsy news. And of course, we'll begin with the newsy news of the free gifty gift the rest of this month.
Yeah.
If you're spending over £50 on the Jerry Anderson store, you'll get a free gift automatically added to your basket. I believe the free gift has changed this week. So you'll be getting something different to if you added last time. If you want to check what the gift is, there's a little trick, which is just to add some stuff into your basket, and you'll see what's added, and then you'll know what this week's or this period of days gift
I
is.
see.
So
I
there
see.
you go, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. There's a little trick for you, Podsterons.
Lovely.
Now, as we mentioned last week, this year is the 40th anniversary of Terrorhawks.
Oh, yes.
So on the 10th of every month, we'll be celebrating Terrorhawks in a very special way. You will have seen a video a few days ago for the 10th of January. What are you hoping for Terrorhawks' 40th anniversary, though? We would love to know your thoughts and wishes and desires. But it's also the anniversary year for a couple of other shows. Joe 90 celebrates its 55th anniversary this year.
Oh, yes.
And the film Thunderbird 6 also celebrates its 55th anniversary. But perhaps most importantly of all, most crucially, and the one that will be sticking in your mind almost every day, I suspect you won't be able to think about anything other than this, is it's the 50th anniversary of the failed pilot, The Investigator.
Right.
So are you hoping for anything for The Investigator's 50th anniversary year?
Please let me write something.
Are you out? Oh, no, absolutely not.
Oh, right.
I think the best we can hope for is that nobody has to see it ever again. Anyway, there you go. No, but seriously, if you've got any thoughts, even for the Investigator's anniversary, we'd love to know. Email us podcast@jerryanderson.com. Now, if you've been waiting for a UFO Shadow Technical Manual or a Moonbase Alpha Technical Manual, because both sold out just before Christmas, they're arriving back in stock this week. And so if you want to pre-order one, it'll be sent out as soon as possible, or just wait until they appear. But yes, we will have stock again. It will be restocked on Amazon and all the various other places. We are, as always, overwhelmed by your support and enthusiasm on these projects, which are true labours of love. Fantastic work by Chris and by the team who are working on the design, the editorial, etc. There are more technical manuals to come, so stand by for that. But in the meantime, they will be returning to stock very shortly. Now, coming up very shortly, we have part 1 of 2 of my chat with David Mather from Corgi. You may have already read the news, and I don't want to spoil the interview, but as announced on the 12th last week, Corgi are reissuing or issuing a brand new Stingray collectible toy. Which is very exciting. I've seen the prototype. It looks rather lovely. Cool. There are some photographs or some renders on the Jerry Anderson website, jerryanderson.com, and you can have a look there. But what else are you hoping for from Corgi over the next couple of years? Well, if you listen to the interview coming up later and next week, you will hear some things that David hints at. And there may be some interesting models being issued in the next 2 or 3 years. So stand by for model action. And finally, a date for your diary, the 30th of January.
Oh, yeah.
Benjamin Field, the director, producer of Jerry Anderson Life Uncharted, and I will be doing a live stream at 6 p.m. on the 30th to celebrate the release of the physical edition, the DVD and Blu-ray, of the extended version of Jerry Anderson Life Uncharted. So if you've got questions, burning thoughts, you'll know how it was made, why we made certain choices, where we got information from, who we spoke to, who we tried to speak to but couldn't speak to, or any other thoughts or whatever, do drop by then. You'll see links available on the Jerry Anderson YouTube channel and elsewhere, or just go onto the YouTube channel or our Facebook page at 6 p.m. UK time on the 30th of January. We'd love to see you there.
Great.
If you can't make it, you can email in questions. Send them into the podcast podcast@jerryanderson.com, and we'll make sure that they are asked during the live stream, and you can always go back and watch it later on. So there you go.
Lovely. Wow, what a bumper crop.
We've always got a busy week for news. There's always stuff going on and so much going on in the background. More on those bits and pieces very soon. But for now, that's the end of this week's Jerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Bumper crop of news. I love the phrase bumper crop.
Yes.
We don't use it enough, do we?
What's the etymology of a bumper
I know,
crop?
it's strange, isn't it?
Well, I'm looking up. So you cover while I look up the etymology of bumper crop.
Well, while you're doing that, actually, I just want to cast your thoughts back to that news item about Terrorhawks being 40 years old. I can't quite believe that.
Yeah.
And it strikes me, I've met Robbie Stevens and Jeremy Hitchens and so on. They must have been so young when they did that 40 years ago.
They were like 18 or something.
Well, exactly.
Weren't they? I think Robbie was certainly pretty youthful.
Extraordinary, yeah, that's amazing. Now, if you are on Facebook, lovely Podstrons, then why not join the Facebook group? I think we've got 907, I think, members of our wonderful podcast listeners Facebook group. So it was my ambition to get it to 1,000 by Christmas. Plainly, that didn't happen. So let's try and get it to 1,000 for next Christmas. We've got plenty of time to do that. I reckon, what's that, 10 a week, and we'll be there? Is that right? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not that many.
No, it's not, is it? So come on, do your bit. Join the podcast listeners group. And you can join people like David Hollis, who posted a picture of Stanley Unwin's grave that he visited and his old house in Long Buckling, Northamptonshire. And he posted, I understand his daughter lives in the little town still and plays the organ and runs the church choir where Stanley is laid to rest. I understand she did a talk to the WI in the town about him. Could she be a good person to talk to about her dad for the podcast? I hope so. And that's from David Hollis. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Certainly be a possibility. We are in touch. We've had a couple of chats about that sort of thing, so we'll see what we can do. Would you like to know the origin of the term bumper?
I really would, yes.
The first use of the word bumper was in the mid-17th century as a description for a full glass. In approximately 1670, the term bumper was an adjective for a glass or goblet filled with wine or beer. If you had a full glass of wine or beer, you were likely to be wealthy and living comfortably at this time, possibly giving us a link to something, a bumper being excessive in the way we use it today. So
yes, like a bumper issue, for example.
Yeah, exactly. The bumper crop is describing something large, with the origin being of those full, excessive glasses, meaning, overly full and sort of wealthy, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's brilliant. There you go. Question answered.
You don't say you never learn anything on the Gerry Anderson podcast.
But I'd also like to know the origin of that crash that I heard as I was reading that out, that Laura has undoubtedly edited out of the podcast.
Well, if it didn't get edited out, that was Marmalade the cat. You know how cats do that thing where they look at you and try and get your attention and then gradually knock something off the side?
Yes.
Well, there was an empty can that I'd been drinking earlier on.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course.
Of sugar-free orange tango, I hasten to add, all beer.
Right.
And Marmalade stared at me and gradually knocked it off to get my attention.
Yeah. It sounded like a china plate had fallen or something.
No, it was an empty can, thankfully.
I see. Good. Doug Godderly posted on our Facebook group, I finally started watching The Secret Service. Got a few episodes in and actually really like what I've seen so far. I've never seen the series before, since it doesn't really get a lot of love from the fans, at least that I've observed. Anyway, I'm regretful that I didn't give it a chance sooner. Peach Harding says, I just watched it for the first time last month. Thought it had a lovely charm about it. I could watch more episodes. Ian Clark agrees. It's a little treasure, but like albums that I dearly love, I visit it sparingly to keep that love and freshness. There's a warmth, charm, eccentricity and subtle humour to it that you don't often find in other Anderson shows, which does make it something of a curate's egg, but definitely my cup of tea. Miles Parrish said I first saw it all the way through in 2010, and I've only watched the odd episode here and there since, but I always really enjoy it. As Ian says, it's a curate's egg, perhaps appropriately given the title character, but a tasty one. Now, on another matter, Hannah posted a picture of Four Feather Falls. She says, my first Anderson series of 2023. I keep forgetting what a fun series this is, and a very important piece of history for television as well. So isn't that wonderful? Lots of people still rediscovering, going back to, or discovering for the first time, old Gerry Anderson series like The Secret Service and Four Feather Falls. So I'm going to ask you this question, Podstrons. Which of the Gerry Anderson series that you hadn't seen before has really surprised you? Because I think a lot of people are genuinely surprised by Secret Service. So let us know. Send your messages in, podcast@gerryanderson.com, or post them on the Facebook group. Which Gerry Anderson series has really taken you by surprise?
Perhaps it was even The Investigator.
Perhaps it might have been The Investigator. Yeah, exactly. So, lots of talk about Secret Service this week. I wonder if Chris Dale has got a Secret Service episode in his randomizer a little later on.
We'll have to randomly find out later on because it's random.
If he does, it's just random. But it often happens like that, doesn't it? So
it's bound to happen.
Because
we talk about Gerry Anderson shows. We name most of them during the thing. And then, come on.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see. All for now, but join the Facebook group, join in the fun. Head on over to facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, answer a few questions. We'll let you in.
We will. Yeah. Brilliant. Let's get those numbers up. We'd love to see it over 1,000. Yeah. Now, would you like to hear from David at Corgi? Because
yes, I would.
That's going to happen.
Great.
Now, I say David at Corgi, I shouldn't say that. David Mather is from Hornby Hobbies, where he's the manager of the Corgi brand.
Oh, wonderful. That's a job.
Well, yes, it is. Cool job to have. He's living his dream. Anyway, he's got a special announcement. You may have already heard it. We've already alluded to it. In fact, I already said it in the news. But we recorded this way in advance and then couldn't get it out immediately before because they had their exclusive time. They wanted to announce it. And so here it is at the earliest possible time. But I have a feeling you're going to enjoy this. There's a bit of history, a bit of new announcements, and some looking to the future. But here is part 1 of 2 with David Mather from Hornby/Corgi.
Hi there, I'm David Mather, head of brand for Corgi at Hornby Hobbies.
That sounds quite cool. I mean, basically, you're a grown-up playing with toys, David, so you're already in the top 5% of cool people who come on the podcast, I think.
Oh no, it's one of those things which you'd sort of say, I can't quite believe if you told my 11-year-old self that you'd be doing this.
Yes.
He wouldn't believe you, because he was sort of too busy sort of scrabbling around in the dirt playing with his die-cast toys way back when. And now the fact that he's sort of off and away busy making brand new ones of the things he loved when he was 11, it just doesn't make any sense, really. But there you go.
You're just not scrabbling around in the dirt anymore. You're now in a fancy office and...
Well, sometimes it might feel like it, but we won't go into business practice or anything like that.
Yeah, okay, let's not get... political or topic. So just, you don't have to give away your age precisely, but just so I get some sense of age, when might you have experienced Anderson stuff, in what decade?
So yeah, well, I mean, I'm more than happy to say that I've just turned 40. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. Happy birthday. It's not just, it was 2 months ago, but you feel your Achilles tendons in the mornings, but that's the only difference I've noticed. But no, so I was, prime position for the 90s revival for everything Anderson. I was there when we were busy buying our Matchbox toys and everyone was fighting over the plastic Tracy Islands. I ended up coming up in front of the school because I made such a brilliant version of Tracy Island out of paper mache from the Blue Peter instructions.
Oh, okay.
I think it's probably still rotting in my parents' loft. I haven't gone to have a look, but it was proper paper mache job. And I put it on a great big sort of like metre square of hardboard and sort of had the sea in there because I always sort of felt a bit odd that you'd fling Thunderbird 4 out the back and it wouldn't actually have anywhere to go if it was just a plastic one. So there was plenty of seascape surrounding the island for it to sort of gad around on out there.
Okay. All right, that's impressive. So you are a card-carrying former childhood Thunderbirds fan, therefore.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought you were going to say you got hauled up in front of the school for, being badly behaved over a Tracy Island issue, but no. By being a massive geek over your Tracy Island, essentially.
No, well, I mean, it did lead to like an unhealthy obsession with paper mache, to be honest. But other than that, it was fine, really. I remember I ended up doing something Jurassic Park related, which started to rot in my parents' spare room. But that's another story entirely, which we won't go into off-brand.
That's for another podcast entirely. Okay. Well, since we've already kind of jumped straight into childhood Thunderbird stuff, and I'm always fascinated by this for kids who grew up in an era when Thunderbirds was already 30 years old or more. Was it then 25, 26 years old?
Yeah, no, it would have been, yeah.
So it wasn't made for you, and yet there was this massive resurgence and everybody loved it. What grabbed you as a 8-9-year-old or whatever it was then that made you watch this old show?
I mean, it suddenly became omnipresent somehow, because it just at exactly the right age, and it was just suddenly everywhere. There was merchandise hitting all over the place. The Matchbox toys were there, as I say, and it sort of captured everyone in the playground. I think maybe I shouldn't say everyone male in the playground. Who should say? But they definitely captured everyone in the playground. It just sort of the invention, action, excitement, stuff exploding, everyone being rescued, lots of adventures and things like that. And it was and the inventiveness as well of it was what really sort of got us, I think, at the time. And just the fact that it has that sort of stuff like CGI versions of children's animation hadn't come in yet. We were sort of used to like 2D animation and things like that. And Thunderbirds was a little bit of a step up, in particular, because it had that real sort of tactile feel to it.
Yes.
Because it was live action, but not live action at the same time. So it felt far more real than other things we were watching, but not to the level of, say, Grange Hill or Biker Grove or anything else that was going around at the time. Sort of they were sort of like boring, slightly older, grown-up things, whereas Thunderbirds was like, no, it's sort of in the same sort of ballpark of like childhood fantasy and escapism, which really sort of grabbed us, I think, when we were sort of running around with terribly made Tracy Brothers cardboard hats on our heads because no one seemed to do cosplay. I think we made them out of cereal boxes or something, but there you go.
Nice. But also beautifully made Tracy Island, so you made up for it with
and that one. Yeah, no, that's it.
I mean, you've already said that you were a kid who sort of scrabbled around in the dirt with toys and stuff. Did Thunderbirds connect with you because of that, or do you think Thunderbirds, because of its tangibility and toys come to life aspect, fed into or maybe even bolstered your playing in the dirt?
I would say probably both, to be honest. I mean, it's one of those where I know my Matchbox toys, they've got all the paint chipped off the wings from the number of times they crashed in the garden.
Quite right too.
They're in an absolute state wherever they actually are, and I should go and find them. It's one of those where it just sort of, that tactile nature of it sort of really encouraged play.
Yeah.
I think it sort of fed quite quickly into like childhood sort of escapism and, just general fun, really. Yeah.
General fun is a great summary for the shows. I mean, because obviously a lot of our listeners grew up potentially in the 60s with the first the first hit of Thunderbirds, and others grew up with resurgences through the late 60s, 70s, etc. But I feel like the 90s was the other big one after the initial launch. So for people that were not growing up in that period, you've already said it was kind of omnipresent, but how was that experience of Thunderbirds compared to, say, other shows, other brands that were around at the time? What made it so omnipresent?
Yeah, so I mean, so if I go further back into my childhood, of course, we had sort of stuff like, I was like a big Ghostbusters fan, and then of course you had Ninja Turtles or Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, as it was in the UK, of course, because ninjas were dangerous. As I recall, and it all got changed, and there was the bit of the moral panic stuff going on.
Yeah,
but it was sort of, that was the hip new thing on the block, and Ghostbusters was sort of 2 years after I was born, and you had the real Ghostbusters animation, things like that. So everyone in my age group sort of was following along with that, and it is sort of like you could sort of sense that there was a very sort of imported nature to the other things that were popular in the playground, whereas something like anything Anderson related, of course, because there's sort of the very sort of British sensibility to it. It sort of, I don't know, it just sort of resonated, and it's sort of difficult to put your finger on exactly why it did that. I think it's just generally like a switch being flicked, and sort of there's no reason for that to happen apart from it just happening. Really, and
something you can't manufacture is just organic, and
that's it. It's almost like chemical in some ways. It's just like a full-on sort of attraction to it. As simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it being a very strange time because I mean, I was 6, 7 when it was coming back, and all my school friends were watching it and buying toys and stuff, and there were Pizza Hut giveaways and all that. Like, it did seem to be in every track of one's young or even adult life in a way that I mean, it's only the kind of the peak new properties that would get that now. I wonder if it was one of the last resurgence type brands.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was. I mean, I remember going to Pizza Hut and getting the cups. And that was a treat for my parents to go to Pizza Hut and try and get the cups, and always being bitterly disappointed that we'd gone slightly too late and missed the good ones. But no, I shouldn't tell my mum that, but there you go. But it sort of, it just became, proper merchandisability, didn't it? It was everywhere out of nowhere, and so just the exposure to it was just, as I say, omnipresent, really.
Yeah. Inescapable. From your Thunderbirds childhood, have you got a favourite toy from that particular period? And if whatever it is, why that one?
Well, I mean, as I say, it would always, I think Matchbox Thunderbird 2 is the one. It's the same. I mean, I've got, we can't see it, of course, because I assume we're going out just as audio.
But you can still show it to me and describe it for our listeners.
I've got the Corgi one next to me, which is sort of effectively a recreation of the Dinky one, and we'll sort of come back onto that a bit later. But it's just like everything about it is the fact that the design of the aircraft is sort of designed to be a toy in some ways. It's sort of it's functional within the show, but in a similar way to like James Bond's DB5, it is like it's packed with things where you can press a switch and something happens.
Yes.
And so it is just purely about playability as a product, and that is, again, is probably something which translates from that childhood love. You see it on the screen. Oh, well, you can buy something that actually does it.
Yeah.
Although I was always thinking that they were probably cowards at the time for not doing all the different pods. But there you go.
Well, maybe that can be rectified one day.
Yeah.
And beyond Thunderbirds, though, David, did you kind of get into the further Anderson stuff when the BBC started showing Stingray and Joe 90 and that kind of stuff as well?
No, absolutely. So yes, it was. I think it was Stingray next, wasn't it? Then they did Captain Scarlet, and then Joe 90. Was the order that everything was aired in. And basically I bought all the toys. Well, I say I bought them. I begged very, very much for all the toys. But yes, I know that all of them are up in my parents' loft. I say my parents' loft, but it was like a clear sort of transition. Thunderbirds is always ground zero. But I do have a big love for Stingray and Captain Scarlet as well. Not so much Joe 90.
That's fine by me.
It might be by the time I was sort of just purely in terms of like aging and things like that. Hormones start to kick in maybe by the time that Joe 90 started to come along. I'm not sure, and it sort of was. I was suddenly sort of starting to slip away from it. But it's one of those things where it's sort of you go through your teens and it's sort of you look back on it fondly, but you don't really think much about it. But suddenly you get to your 40s, and you're looking back on it and saying, "Oh my word, that was amazing." That was sort of absolutely amazing, and that's the problems with in effect the crack cocaine that is nostalgia. It is a fantastic thing.
Well, since you've brought up the nostalgia drugs reference, which I don't think anyone's ever called it out on the podcast, but nostalgia is such a powerful thing, and it's obviously a big reason. It's the main reason that most of our podsterons listen in, and the reason that people keep coming back, and the reason they want to see a guide to life or Moonbase Alpha that we did last year, that kind of thing. They want those. Why? What is it? What are we seeking that makes us do this thing? Because you're growing up, and there are more grown up perhaps pursuits, adult toys, for want of a better description, that you could afford if you've got some disposable income as you get older, and yet we start looking backwards. What are your theories as to why we do that?
It is a funny thing, isn't it? Obviously I have to be in the nostalgia business based on what I do. I have to.
Same for us.
We have to manufacture nostalgia, and it's sort of not to sort of make it in a cynical way. It's it's the same thing. You're in competition with stuff like games, consoles, and all sort of things which are out there for the attention to grab you. But in terms of the actual sort of desire for nostalgia, it is about recapturing that memory. It is sort of as simple as that. It's about sort of saying I was 10, 11 and I had these toys, and now you can still get them in a slightly different, maybe a little bit improved form, or, as I'll come to a bit later, in a form which never actually existed but you wish it had.
Yes.
And so it's all about sort of capturing that moment of, oh, I remember when I opened that, or when I looked at that, or when I watched that for the first time. And you always sort of wish that you could watch something amazing again for the first time, I find, as well. But that's why, if you're a fan of something, you watch it again and again regardless, because you remember that first time.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those really sort of like primal things, I think. Not to go deep and philosophical. It's the human condition, good. I think.
Yeah.
I think it really, really is sort of deep-seated in us. And you can sort of be someone that just sort of dives off and looks to the future all the time, but I like to do both.
I'm also fond of both, but I find myself, now trying to draw back in those childhood toys that I had. And we made a documentary about Dad recently, and in that, it's basically discovered that he had no nostalgia ever.
Right,
there was nothing about, because for him, he had no positivity in his childhood, so there was no warmth to then look back on and try and revisit and recapture. And I think that seems to be a huge part of, it's sort of seeking shelter and safety and nice feelings from the past. But anyway, it's a fascinating business to be in, and we're both in it. You're doing something very specific with Corgi as part of Hornby. So, well, if I already say that, I'm already thinking, okay, what do we call you? What's the history here? How has this happened? And I know we mentioned before the recording that there's a long line of handovers and stuff. So just frame up for me Hornby's existence back through to the earliest kind of Anderson-related toys and how that's happened.
Well, I mean, it is a bit of a funny one because, in effect, Hornby, as in trains, was obviously, created by a gentleman called Frank Hornby. And he also created Meccano. And from Meccano, you had the spin-off of Dinky Toys.
Yep. And
so, Dinky sort of emerged as the front runner, probably, as the oldest sort of UK die-cast toy manufacturer in the UK. And you had from that spring up in competition Matchbox and Corgi, Corgi Toys as they were. So by the time sort of we got to the point where Thunderbirds came along, everything had been in existence for Corgi for about 10 years.
Yep.
And I wasn't here. They'd done the Aston Martin DB5 from Goldfinger, most popular die-cast model car ever made. And by all accounts, there was a sort of a bit of a not exactly a bidding war, a bit of a face-off between Dinky and Corgi, and Dinky ended up winning the war to sort of make Thunderbirds die-cast. They went off and they did Fab 1, and then they did Thunderbird 2 in a permutation of colours, including the famous blue one.
Yes.
And in the end, all three of those rivals, Dinky, Matchbox and Corgi, through a very storied sort of sequence of events, ended up being owned by Mattel. So basically all the die-cast brands were owned by Mattel.
Yep.
And then Corgi broke off from that. Dinky has sort of gone dormant, I suppose you could say, under Mattel ownership. It's not been sort of produced since the mid-70s. But Matchbox, of course, famously is still going strong. And Corgi sort of ended up in like the late 2000s coming under the ownership of Hornby Hobbies, which is sort of a company which had spun out of the name of Hornby Trains. So as you see, it's sort of we've all sort of swapped places in effect.
Yeah.
With the added great irony, of course, that all three manufacturers, Dinky, Matchbox and Corgi, have made Anderson-related die-cast in the end. And so now we're the ones who sort of tried to get it way back in the 60s, failed to do so, and now we still have the Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet and Stingray licenses. And so we've been producing products again since 2003. So that's before Hornby Hobbies took ownership of Corgi. It's complicated.
It is, but you're explaining it extremely well.
You should have to sort of draw a graph, not a graph, a spreadsheet of everything. But so basically, Fab 1 and Thunderbird 2 and 4, again, with the Dinky versions, in effect, were retooled from scratch by Corgi in the early 2000s.
Right.
And, in effect, they match those original Dinky versions. Maybe not so much the Matchbox. And then by 2016, Corgi, under Hornby Hobbies ownership, went and did brand new tools of Thunderbird 1 and Thunderbird 3 together, which were released as a double pack. Currently in the range, we've only got Thunderbird 2 and 4, but we're going to be working on that. But yeah, it's one of those where everything sort of, literally the Mad Hatter's Tea Party is all I can suggest it as. Everyone sort of swapped seats and moved around.
Yeah.
Some of them have disappeared and gone, no, I'm going home. I don't want to stay at this party for various reasons. But others are sort of still there. And, we're still producing this product based on these series.
That's brilliant. I love the kind of interrelatedness of it all and how it has come back around, even though there was a missed opportunity the first time. And yet, that all came from Hornby, where it was the direct competitor at the time.
Ooh, more from David next week.
Great.
There you go. I think we alluded to future stuff there. But anyway, quite interesting to hear the history of how rival companies, Dinky and Corgi, etc., ended up all under the same thing. Crazy way things work. But more from David next week. If you want to look up the latest news, including the Stingray news, you can go to corgi.co.uk, click on Diecast Diaries and look for their January the 12th or 13th edition. And you can see some images there, but they're also at jerryanderson.com, and we'll have more across our social media. So there we are.
Great. Talking to social media, over on Twitter, people have been hashtagging us Jerry Anderson Podcast, tagging me, Richard and James, him over there, I'm Jamie Anderson, and him standing by the big red button ready for his randomizer any minute now, Chris Dalek. For example, Stephen Watson tweeted, working my way through my Blu-ray of Joe 90 today, I watched King for a Day and Double Agent. The first had absolutely gorgeous sets, and the second a surprisingly adult disagreement at the Wynn office. 2 great episodes. Stephen adds, if you love these, then listen to the Jerry Anderson Podcast.
Quite right too. Oh, that's weird.
Now then, Peach says the Gerry Anderson podcast is something I happily discovered over the summer and wished I'd found it years ago. If you ever enjoyed a Gerry Anderson production, then you'll love this. Worth listening to all the pods, says Peach.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? Thanks, Peach. Thanks for joining us.
And finally, Lost in Transition. In a recent Randomizer episode, Chris Dale discussed the last of the Xanadu's and wondered how could the Lazoons almost wipe out an entire race. Well, I always wondered how a tribble caused so much anguish to the Klingon race. So there you go. Nothing new under the sun. Isn't it?
Very true.
So yes, if you're on Twitter, do give us a hashtag, Gerry Anderson Podcast, and I'll read out your tweets next time.
I look forward to hearing them / reading them.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
While we wait for next week, I think it's probably proper and prim that we hand over to the Randomizer. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, very good. Yes, go on then.
Okay, well, the Randomizer, best known as Chris Dale, or at Chris Dalek on Twitter, is here to randomly pick a random Gerry Anderson episode and tell us all about it. So, without further ado, here's the very random Randomizer, Chris Dale.
Look out! Oh, sorry, yes, I do apologise. Oh, dear me, sorry. Oh dear, it's very crowded in the Gerry Anderson character cafeteria today. I can't find a free seat anywhere.
Why so much leper? I must eat alone.
Sahala! No, absolutely not. I'm more than happy to join you. Well, isn't this nice?
How can I thank you?
Oh, well, it's nothing really.
You seem somehow different from the others.
Well, I suppose so. Yes, I guess if there's one word that sums me up, it would be different.
Thank you for trying to be kind.
Oh, well, don't mention it.
I felt through it all you were my friend.
Really?
There's only one way to repay you for your kindness.
Is there? Oh, well, yes, of course, yes, obviously. Pressing the button on the randomizer. Oh, essential. Yes.
Is that very important?
Yes, very important.
For what purpose?
Oh, well, I mean, how else would I know that today's episode is, 10 Top Pop?
Then you're convinced I'm telling the truth?
Oh, Sahala, I'm convinced this could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Yes, well, anyway, here's Terrorhawks.
You see, it begins.
So, we welcome back to the Randomizer. It's Terrorhawks, and how appropriate that the very first Randomizer I record in 2023 is Terrorhawks. It is the 40th anniversary year of Terrorhawks, so very nice to see this episode come up today. Even though this is an odd one to talk about, I find, so I'm quite happy to have this on the table today, because I've generally found it quite a forgettable episode, and I think that's largely due to its place in the run, because it was made after, and also shown after, the episode Operation SAS, in which Kate Kestrel and Stewed Apples were held prisoner by Zelda, or Youngstar. Then instantly you have this episode, which is so similar, and I think that's why this episode I don't hold particularly fond memories of, simply because of that place in the running order. It's not this episode's fault, but it always comes so close to Operation SAS, no matter what order you watch it in. Anywho, Kate is recording at Anderbo Records, faster than the speed of your love, and who's up on Mars? Enjoying the music, it's Youngstar.
Brother, caught you again, you deceitful boy.
Oh dear, listening to music, very naughty.
Filling his mind with triviality.
Oh, at least she credits him that he's still got a mind. But this is the point in Terrorhawks where it's all, I think, finally sort of come together. We know what the show is, we know what the strengths are, we know who these characters are.
Yes, indeed. Observe.
And he's made a list.
Compiled the list of precedents the Earthlings call the top 10.
Including Anne and the Droids, the Bray Boys, and the Cantina Band, because of course you cannot have an 80s sci-fi musical countdown without the Cantina Band.
Pop!
This is an odd bit of dialogue though, the mangling of...
Carriage him, sister.
Yeah, Pop Top 10. Which gives us the title of 10 Top Pop.
Contraption.
Doesn't make any sense.
To put a stop to it.
Oh no.
Please.
Again, another link to Operation SAS. I think Yuri broke it in Operation SAS.
The machine could be put to a more
mysterious youth.
Ooh. But I think this is one of the benefits of coming to this episode now on the randomizer. We have already done Operation SAS.
From the planet.
That was about 2 years ago now. So, yeah, this one is going to be a bit more fresh to me. So let's see how we go with this.
A youngster, tell me more about your most interesting device.
Again, that makes me think of a moment I was expecting it to come there, of the moment in Operation SAS where she goes, "Come, sit upon my lap, sonny boy." I thought that was going to be this episode. It must be Operation SAS. These things are just so close.
See you later.
Also, I think they're back-to-back in whatever one of the compilation films that both episodes appeared in.
Bye, Miss Kestrel.
What's happening, Stu?
Well, what's happening? Right. Well, what's happening is we need to play back that final take, and it's a wrap.
Yay.
It may not work.
And it's also one of the first episodes to make good use of Stu Dapples. I think Robbie has finally... Well, no, not finally, because he got into it quite quickly. He's found the voice now. There was something slightly not quite right with Stu in the early episodes, but now he's here. The character is fully formed. Somehow he's picking up Zelda's message.
How's that?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said something,
Not a word, Stu.
I sense.
I don't talk to you unless I need to know what's happening, Stu. Oh, there goes the wig. I love that noise. Oh, Anne Riddler found so many good noises for Sister.
Power of my voice.
Stu seems very happy and bouncy to go along with this at first.
You will
I will obey? Oh, yeah, right, okay, well, okay. I will obey.
And I'm not entirely sure how she takes control of him. A similar thing happened in Gunfight at Oki's Corral, where she seemed to sort of take control of Sam Oki, but there was a cube involved. This, I don't know, is Stu just very susceptible? Suggestible, even? He's, Anywho, they now have control of one recording engineer. World domination can only follow.
I don't like the look of this, Dix Hewitt. This time he might do it.
Oui. His score is very close now.
And this is also the point where we've finally established Dizweet as Zero's second in command. Quite right, too.
Never hear the last of it.
What an asset Robbie is to this show, between Stu Dapples, Dizweet, Hudson, and Youngstar in particular. Just so much of the show's greatest characters and finest comedy moments come from him, and
It makes me want to throw my arms in the air.
I also love with this, and it was something I enjoyed as well over Christmas, watching A Christmas Miracle, seeing in particular Youngstar and Sistar enjoying Earth culture, in this case Earth music.
Caught the waves that travel through the ether and held them in the ferret. The Earthlings call it recording.
Recording?
Speaking of recordings, there's another song in the background there. I Got the Power. It would be so nice to separate that from the dialogue and actually have a clean copy to listen to. Who else have we got?
Top!
They showed the list again there. They're still going on about it's not that funny as a joke.
Are you deaf?
But Sistar and Youngstar are quite pleased with it.
Ah, there you are. Zelda, you should recognize the genius of Youngstar.
Oh.
Stored in the...
Not often that word is used in the same sentence as the name Youngstar. Oh, smacked her in the face.
Your interest.
I recognize, perhaps, some minor talent.
Oh. Wow, mark that on the calendar.
Which we are hungry to hear.
Yes, he's not quite the full gurgling imbecile yet. This is probably the last gasp of brilliance of a plan from Youngstar.
Intend to use these meteors
before he finally completed his descent into total imbecility. Sister is bouncing up and down. Again, a credit to the puppeteers. They were just dancing her there, and now she's bobbing up and down with excitement.
I know.
We're all off to Earth. That'll be good.
Time I've got you.
I bet Sistar doesn't get to set foot on the planet, though.
How do I look?
Oh, sparkly.
Well?
Mary, you look fabulous. You'll knock him out at that party.
Whose party is this, by the way? Oh, it's enough to lose Tiger his game.
I spoilt your game.
Mary, want to know something? I couldn't care less.
Aww.
Don't work too hard. Don't bend my airplane. And enjoy Katie's party.
I said that without moving my lips. I've been practicing my ventriloquism.
The belle of the ball.
So Kate's throwing a party. And Hawkeye isn't invited. I think it's more for her...
It's double meaning, Belle.
Musical contacts and such.
Hey, you know, Dick Hewitt, sometimes you're not so thick as you look.
That is an insult. I take it happily.
Stu, are you down?
Again, I was thinking, actually...
Lock the door up here and I can't get out.
Going back to Robbie, just the interactions between him as...
Thank you for picking me up,
T-Sweet, and also as 101 with Windsor. So much ad-libbing must be going on in moments like that.
The king asked me to apologise. He's been unavoidably detained.
And Stu actually makes for a fairly sinister presence in this episode.
Never better.
I think also it's due to the fact that at this point in the series we don't really know the guy. So you can kind of, essentially, it almost feels like he's almost a Mr. On agent there. He could, she just asked him, "Are you feeling all right?" And we got the traditional Mr. On agent response of, "Yeah, I'm fine." New footage as well of Tiger and Mary at the controls of Hawkwing in their party gear.
Who will be at this party, Miss Kestrel?
Just a few friends.
And the voice as well, the voice is slightly more refined.
Alone with you.
Ooh.
Stop the car.
And somehow he has a gun.
Yes, madam.
Do as he says, Hudson. Pull over.
I don't know where Stu would have found a gun. Maybe his mum has one at home.
Tell the driver to walk away and keep walking.
You heard the man, Hudson. What's this all about?
Stu doesn't know that there is no human driver. After all, he was only in this car last week, but had his memory wiped, of course.
My control has taken a hostage.
It's just so strange. If they just only separated those episodes a bit in the running order, I think this one, not only I might like it more, but I think it just might be more appreciated. Because as it stands, it almost feels like, here's the same episode again, but not quite as strong.
A meteorite, quite large.
Which is, it does this episode a disservice, because really, there's nothing wrong with this episode.
There's nothing we can do.
Oh, okay. Space Hawk can't shoot the Rhino because a big asteroid thing is in the way. Meteorite.
Was an intruder hiding out there. It's through.
Oh, dear. Oh, that was our scene, 101. We did absolutely nothing. Yes, the Rhino has now landed.
What now?
We wait.
It's hot in here. I should have worn something lighter. Maybe a different color.
Hint, hint. But of course, Stu sees no one in the front seat.
Don't even think of trying anything.
That's it. Clever old Hudson is signalling very brightly while at Kate's mountain hideaway.
No sign of Miss Kate, and it's getting late.
I'm still in the show, but not for much longer. That didn't rhyme, but who cares? Poor 5-5.
Someone will join you shortly to collect the hostage.
Yeah, again, this is, I suppose, a bit of a Captain Scarlet setup, really.
Let me go, mother.
Oh, God, no! Yeah, Stu is the sort of Mr. On agent. Zelda is the sort of Captain Black equivalent, you know what you must do kind of thing.
Go and bring the Earth scum back to the Rhino.
Let Youngstar do it. What could possibly go wrong?
Take those with you.
Ooh, 2 cubes. No, Sister. No, she said she wanted to go, and now they're here. They're not going to let her out.
That?
How would I know?
Ooh.
Hawkeye, we found Kate.
She's in some kind of trouble.
Get Battlehawk out here. Tan-tan.
Who does that leave in charge of Hawknest now? Nobody. Everyone's going. The place is abandoned. It's nice to see Hawkeye at the controls of Battlehawk for a change, in a nice nighttime launch sequence. Yeah, he's in the pilot's chair, the captain's chair, I suppose you could say, and
we'll be there in 17 minutes.
He's got Zero alongside.
A couple of Zeroids in the area. I want to know what's going on down there.
That's us, Dick Hewitt.
Oh no, not another drop from the Great Height.
Oh, there's an early appearance of that lovely phrase. The Great Height.
You will get out and come with me.
Ah, there he is.
Do not try to escape, or my cubic friends will blow you into tiny bits.
I know I captured you last week, but I'm going to try it again. Oh, I can't do a Youngstar voice. Oh my goodness. Sorry.
I missed the party.
Oh, poor chick. And I believe we're coming up on a Shakespeare quote here. May or may not be a direct lift, but it's definitely a line.
Oh, it's my feet.
That's not it.
Hurts so much. It's all this walking.
I mean, maybe there's a bit of it in a Shakespeare play somewhere. Someone complaining about their feet.
Move on, move on.
Oh, it must be the next scene I'm thinking of. Yeah, poor Youngstar though. Again, it's good puppeteering here. That he's really plodding and struggling. Lovely nighttime model stuff in this one too.
10-10.
It is a long way down. But now the ground it come up very fast. Oh, ma foi.
Oh.
There has to be some easier way of doing this.
Keep your voice down.
Oh dear. Poor Zero. Poor D's Wheat as well.
I can't go on. Lend me your ears.
Yeah, I've always wondered if that's a Shakespeare quote, if that's a nod to Julius Caesar, just because Stu has the headset.
Can you come and get me?
Cannot land in the trees, you imbecilic youth.
Wait, it did earlier, didn't it?
Or you will feel the weight of my stick.
Evidently the walk back is further than the walk to the car.
Miss Kestrel, she's being held by Youngstar and a couple of cubes.
Stay out of sight, Zero.
Yes, we're at that point now where the Terrorhawks know who Youngstar is.
Try a little bluff. I'm taking us down.
This nighttime stuff is actually really atmospheric, whether it's the model stuff or the stuff on the puppet stage as well. They've got a bit of... Is that dry ice in the background to give a sort of fog effect? Yeah. It looks nicely atmospheric, and it also hides certain less attractive elements of the puppets when they're lit slightly differently.
You stay here.
Take care.
Mary put on her nice sparkly dress.
You're surrounded.
Now she's out in the woods.
I have a prisoner, clown.
Same one as last week, but hey-ho. Multiple cubes.
Take out those cubes as soon as you can, Zero, and let me know when you've done it.
Yes, sir.
I'm coming in, android.
Youngstar's so useless that he lets Einstein stop and chat to Zero.
You surrendering to me, Doctor?
Why should I?
Oh, Doctor, not clone.
I hold all the cards.
There is nothing but sunlit uplands.
What are you looking at?
Looking at?
My ship. I know what you're thinking.
Thinking? What am I thinking?
That you...
joke's on you, I don't think.
To escape.
Nah, that's not fair. This is still the point where he does think.
You're an air machine.
Yeah, but you can't use it because you can't fly it.
But you can, clone. Oh, I have outwitted you.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's, again, really good acting there, especially with just the... Again, it's the reaction from the puppeteers as well that helps sell it, in addition to really great voice acting.
What is the cretin talking about now?
That, to be fair, is a typical Zelda reaction to any of Youngstar's lines.
My life for such beauty.
Aww.
18. I am ready to charge.
He's so brave.
They'd kill her before we got close.
But of course they would develop it into Zero being the one who had feelings for Mary.
How do we do this?
Oh, that laugh.
It's a me, lad.
That laugh is just brilliant, yes. And there goes Hawkwing. With Tiger at the controls and Youngstar in... Well, I think the annual and sort of publicity material calls the wing bit the egg, which is very strange.
We have a trap. We must...
I mean, I call it the wing bit, but...
Youngstar!
The egg just doesn't fit.
If I had intended him to fly, I would have given him wings.
Oh. Zero and his wheat have worked out a plan.
Yes, I'm ready.
Sort of seesaw thing.
With I who jump.
Right.
Zero at one end of a log.
Here I come.
And here comes his wheat. Another crash through the trees, that's it. Here's Zero. Come to save the day. Wow. Good stuff. They must have had loads of cubes to blow up through this series.
Done, Sergeant Major.
Thank you, Mom.
Tell Dr. Neinstein we're free.
Ground position, secure, sir.
Hooray! Where's Hawkeye during all this? He did say for Battlehawk not to land, but it seems strange that he's just circling.
Reckon you could fly this?
With my mechanical aptitude, there is no doubt in my mind.
In that case, have a good fright.
Oh. Oh dear, he's separated. Oh, this is good.
Great mounds of dust. He meant it.
Youngstar is now on his own in the wing bit of Hawkwing. And it's not going well, as you can hear. Some lovely silly moments throughout this entire Youngstar in Hawkwing bit. That's one of my favourite lines, actually, for the whole character. And again, just some lovely puppeteering on his reactions, and he's throwing his hands over his face there. Trashing a lot of electricity pylons, and then, where are we going to land?
For pity's sake, get me out of here!
Andabur Cash and Carry Warehouse. Well, I hope there was nothing important in there. Wow, that is a spectacular explosion. That's one of the best in the show. Poor Youngstar. Is this the first time he got caught in an explosion? I think the show probably realised after this, actually, it's great fun blowing up Youngstar and hurting and humiliating him.
I'm 99 next birthday.
Aww.
Well, I'll be glad when you've grown up. Perhaps by then you will have acquired some sense.
Oh, poor Youngstar. Yeah, probably the beginnings there of Youngstar just being used as the ultimate comedy foil in the series, humiliated throughout, but he does it so well, so it's great fun. I hope Stu was released from her control at the end there. Stu just seemed to have got forgotten at the end. But anywho, that was Terrahawks 10 Top Pop, and as I've said, quite probably a bit too much earlier, I never really had much time for this one, simply because it comes so close to a very similar episode that's slightly better. But that's not the fault of this episode, that's just the fault of the scheduling. And looking at this individually as just a single episode of Terrahawks with no reference to Operation SAS, I've really enjoyed coming back to this one today. It's always nice when you look at an episode you don't remember fondly and think, actually, there's some very nice stuff here. We're just at this point where Terrahawks is finally starting to come together. Lots of good drama, lots of silliness, lots of great characters, some all-round good fun. Great stuff.
Oh, Rat,
Terrahawks.
the Zelda rat.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
What a load of...
Yeah, well.
No, I love Terrahawks, but that is a particularly weird one. Thank you, Chris. And I always want to try and sing at soprano level the Anderson Burr
maybe
sting,
not right now,
but I don't think I've got the voice for it. But maybe next week. Let's see how we do. No, well, that's lovely, but that is not the sting I was thinking of.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. At the very end, the Anderson Burr Pictures animation has a little very, very high-pitched...
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that when you're better.
Yeah, but I did enjoy your vocalisation of the Terrorhawks thing.
Thank you. Now, just before we say goodbye, I just want to draw everyone's attention to one of the recent fab facts about Space 1999 being a method of torture according to the US Supreme Court. It's up on our YouTube channel, if you haven't heard it already. Some of the comments rather made me laugh. Cyber leader Andy commented, I think a lot of current-era Netflix, Disney and Amazon programmes could constitute a lot more in terms of cruel and unusual than Space 1999 ever does.
Fair.
Death Dream posted, how dare they speak such ill will about Space 1999? Clearly, they've never seen UFO. Disclaimer, he goes on to say, the comment is intended for entertainment purposes. Bless every last UFO fan. And finally, for now, Ian Dealey has imagined something far worse. A judge saying this, I sentence you to 2 months of watching Torchy the Battery Boy. Can you imagine? What crime would deserve such a fate, I wonder? But there we are.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, but do join in the fun. Our YouTube channel is full of goodies. I know they say it very often, but you put aside a couple of days and just watch everything. Why not?
Watch every single thing.
There. That's right. And comment on it.
Yes. There are many hundreds of hours, though, so
crazy.
Just remember to stock up on some food and drink before you begin such a marathon.
Good idea. Great.
Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap this thing up?
That's all for now, but don't forget you can subscribe to us and rate and review for us and share on all your socials. Let us know you're listening. Let us know what you think, because we're here for you, really, aren't we? So,
yes.
Get in touch.
Absolutely. Drop us a note, tweet us, all that good stuff. And we will be back in your ears for pod 2-for-1.
Crikey.
2-for-1.
I like it.
Next time.
Nice.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
But we don't have to do 2-for-1, do we?
Oh, I hope not.
Oh, imagine.
See how we do. Okay, well, have a great week till then. Bye,
yeah,
Potstrons.
we'll do. And you. Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
And I do hope by next week that I shall be back in full voice, so I can do my soprano Anderson Burr.
I'm so looking forward to it, because I don't know what you mean, so I'll recognise it when you do it.
Yeah. Just you wait. I mean, you may need to, I don't know, pad your ears or something. Some ear defenders, because it's very, very, very high pitched.
Oh, okay. I'll alert the dogs.
Yeah, they won't need to, because they'll hear it and come running.
Nice.
Yes. Anything else? Any other Anderson things that you think, Anderson themes you think there should be a choral version of?
Well, of course, obviously Space Precinct.
Yes.
I mean, Tom Watt and I put our own lyrics to that back in the day.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could ask Joe Kramer very nicely.
Yes.
To do a Latin kind of incantation type of version of Space Precinct.
I should imagine he's not got that much time on his hands, to be fair.
Well, I can still ask him.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
see how he does. Yeah. And you'd have to write some Latin lyrics to it.
Yes. They would have to make sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Not just any old Latin motto.
No, it's got to be meaningful. So, okay, let's see. You get penning the Latin lyrics.
It all depends on him having seen any of Space Precinct, doesn't it, really?
I'm sure he's a super fan and has probably got the box set.
Oh, fair enough.
But I'll email him right now and find out. And fingers crossed, in a few weeks' time, we'll have that choral version of Space Precinct.
Oh, lovely. Well, let us know how you get on.
Will do. Wish me luck.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye now.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.